live today. Hello, everyone. I'm Suzie Hart. I'm the editor in chief of the Daily Deck magazine. And today I'm here with my wonderful boss, Thea Skelton. How are you, Thea?
Oh, hi, Susie. Well, thank you for having me as my wonderful colleague. It's great to be on your podcast. So thank you for the invite. I really appreciate it.
I mean, it's honestly such a pleasure and a privilege. Like the reason why I wanted to sit down with you today is that like for so many years, you've been working in the events industry and you've been like a festival director. And one of the main things that we are really interested to see is about like strong female leadership in the region and how to basically step into our role as females and stuff and really step out as well. So I think that you are actually really inspiring, and so that's why I wanted to sit down with you today. And like, man, I have so many questions for you, and I just can't wait to dive right in.
Great.
But before we do, I was just wondering if like our viewers, our listeners, can get to know you. So why
Yeah.
don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself, what you
Okay.
do, hobbies, anything you
Right.
want? Go ahead.
Okay. So I have been in Dubai for, it's actually this month is my 14th year in Dubai. So I guess that's something about me. I'm originally from the UK, from the south, from near a city called Brighton. I worked in London for about 10 years before coming out to Dubai, and as like most people seem to when they come to Dubai when they're older, I thought I'd be here for a couple of years, and now I'm 14 years later, I'm still here. And that's mostly because I found that there's been a lot of opportunity here, and I've had some amazing experiences whilst I've been here. I met my husband here as well, which was great, and he's an architect working on some of the kind of Saudi mega projects. And yeah, I live with him, and I have two. You asked me about things I love. I love my French bulldogs, my two dogs, Hubert and August, and so they keep me busy, unbelievably. And I mean, I guess like my kind of like what I really enjoy is I studied ancient history at uni, so I really love learning about history, especially kind of the ancient Greeks and the Romans, because that's what I studied. So that's something for me that's quite a passion, and I love going to Greece and looking at the kind of ancient sites, and to Italy as well. And so I travel, and I think that's something I love about being in Dubai, is that we're kind of a stepping stone to the rest of the world, so it allows us to travel a lot. So I really love travel, and I love culture. I love going to see a good play. I love going to see musicals. I'm a passionate reader, so I've always got a couple of books on the go, mostly fiction rather than non-fiction. I like escaping into different worlds. So yeah, that's kind of a bit about me.
Wow, I mean that's so cool. I actually didn't know that you studied history
I
in
didn't
university,
you?
but
Oh, okay.
that's so
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
So you've traveled a lot.
Yeah, I've travelled a lot. Yeah, like I've always travelled actually. Like when I was growing up, we used to travel a lot to Cyprus because we had a house there, and I think that's where my kind of love of the ancient world started, because it's apparently Aphrodite's birthplace. So I learned all about the Greek myths, and from there, kind of really started to get into like understanding more about ancient history and going to see old sites. So yeah, and then I travelled quite a lot when I was younger. Like when I just left university, I went travelling in South America on my own, and that was an amazing experience because obviously like saw so much of the world, but also for me on my own, it was quite good in terms of my confidence, learning how to interact with new people all the time, because you're always meeting new people, and I've kind of always travelled a bit on my own since then as well. Yeah,
Wow,
yeah.
that's so cool. So today I wanted to talk to you a little bit about from your experience as an events person.
Yeah.
As you guys may not know, Thea is the festival director of the Dubai Lynx Festival, and she has many years of experience. So how long have you been in the events industry?
Wow, so I was thinking about this earlier, and I think I'm almost 20 years in the events
Wow.
industry. Yeah,
Okay.
so a long
Yeah.
time.
What made you decide to get into events?
Well, I certainly didn't decide. I didn't think when I was younger I really want to work in events. To be honest, one of the reasons why is it wasn't really like a job role per se when I was kind of, thinking about what I wanted to do. Like it was more something that just seemed to fit into kind of marketing.
Mm.
So it wasn't, I didn't really understand it was a career option. And to be honest, when I was younger, I always wanted to be an archaeologist or I wanted to be a journalist for a while. And then archaeology didn't fit quite right for me because it's really, really scientific, whereas I preferred the kind of understanding of history through literature. So I decided not to go down that route. Journalism, I ended up doing some work experience at a women's magazine, and it completely put me off wanting to be a journalist for a women's magazine. And then I fell into my first job out of uni was in an events agency as a kind of PA, and I kind of fell into it actually more than anything. And that was with that job was with in quite a kind of operational production company. So I did that for a year as a production assistant by the time I left. And then I thought, oh no, I just want to travel. So I went traveling. Then I came back and I got a temping job at the Guardian newspaper, which is now Guardian News and Media. And after a while, they put me in the events team because they had quite a big sponsorship and events team. And that was when I started thinking, I really like working in events. I really enjoyed that role. It's very, the thing I love about events is that you work across so many different industries all the time. So, you know, you can one day you could be working at Glastonbury Festival, the next day you could be running a current affairs debate at a political conference. So I feel like that was when my kind of understanding and passion for events really set in.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's so interesting. Like the one thing I really like about events that sets it apart from so many others is the dynamism of it. Like it's always different. It's always a different event. Something's changing, and it constantly kind of keeps you up on your toes. So
Yeah,
one of the things I really wanted to talk about today, and I've been thinking about this a lot over the past couple of months, is about energy and
yeah,
charisma, and how does that actually play into leadership.
yeah.
So when we talk about energy, usually if you observe leaders, they tend to have like a charisma or an energy that people are drawn to, that they listen to. And
Mm.
I've seen from my experience, like as you're networking with people or talking to clients and stuff, people are quite drawn to you. So the energy and authority that you have, is that something that you think you've always had, or did it build up over time? What do you
Yeah.
think?
I would say it's two parts of it. One is that the nature of events is you have to have quite a lot of energy because, as you know, it's crazy when it comes to running an event. Like the only thing that's getting you through is your energy because you're kind of having to think about so many different things at one time. So you have to really make sure you are kind of on top of everything, which takes a certain amount of energy to be able to do, and you're constantly responding to people during an event itself. So I think it's quite a high energy job. So I would say that I've probably always had that because I've worked in events for a long time. I think in terms of commanding, like, or kind of being a commanding presence and coming across as having that kind of authority and energy, I would say I haven't always had that, but I think if you are passionate about what you do and you have a very good understanding of the project you're working on, so whether that's kind of one event that's completely different from any other event that you've done, the kind of like the type of people who will come to that event, really understanding kind of who they are, you know, their motivation. I think that gives you that energy and I think it gives you that presence because you're really talking about something that you're passionate about. And I think that the other part of that is people really love talking about what they do. And I think if you ask a lot of questions, it kind of gives you that kind of, I would say, I wouldn't say charisma, but it gives you that presence because people respect that you're interested in what they're talking about,
Okay.
if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, that totally makes sense. So basically, to have passion, to know what you're doing, and to just lead with that confidence of being secure in what you do and talking about it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I think as long as you, when you go into a room full of people you don't know, as long as you know what you're talking about, that gives you a confidence
Hmm.
because you've got something. that you know they're interested in.
Yeah.
So if I'm going in to see somebody I've never met before, a new company, I will make sure I really understand exactly what I'm going to talk to them about. So whatever it is in my job that I want to talk to them about, but I will also research their company so I can ask them questions about it as well.
Okay. So, when we talk about like the authority that you have and stuff, obviously you would have to like carry that authority into separate contexts and different situations. And from my experience and knowing you, there have been times where you've had to be like in a room full of men and you're like the only woman and stuff. And to me personally, like thinking about that, I think I would be really intimidated,
Yeah.
because I'm working to build my confidence. But when I'm in a room full of men and I'm having to speak or pitch or say something,
Yeah.
I think I can get a little bit intimidated. So I wanted to know from your perspective, what's that experience been like for you, and how did you maintain that authority in situations where you're in a room full of men?
Yeah, I understand that's intimidating. You know, like I get intimidated not just going into a room full of men, but going into a room full of people I don't know. I think you have to just understand that you've got every right to be there as much as they have. You might not be, or I might not be the loudest person in the room, and I might not be the person talking the most in the room, but I have as much right to be there. And the way that I approach it is going in, there's a reason for me to be there. I have something to say whilst being there, and I have a right to be there. And I'm not a very, I wouldn't say I'm like a domineering presence. So I'm not going to go in and be really loud and aggressive, because that's not the way I am. But I will sit down. If every man in the room, or every woman, if it's, you know, another room like that, wants to be loud and talk about and, you know, kind of command the audience, fine, let them do it, because at some point there will be the opportunity for me to sit and say what I need to say. You know, so I kind of like would say that my inner confidence is based on the reasoning for me to be there, and I have a right to be there. I have information that they want to hear about, because otherwise why would I be in the room? So let them settle, then we'll talk. You know?
Okay, wow, that's super interesting. So you're based in the Middle East and you have a very high stress job working in events. How has that experience been like for you, being a female leader working in high stress environments and having to be on the go a lot of the time?
I mean, it it can be stressful, but I think that you have to keep things in perspective. I think that's really important. Like it is tough. Like there are definitely days that I feel like stressed and, you know, kind of a bit intimidated by everything I have to do. But I think you need to just keep things in perspective. You know, it's important to have a life away from work. I think that was something I was really bad at doing when I was younger. Constantly be switched onto it at the weekends, in the evenings, in my downtime, and having it. I feel like if you have it on your mind all the time, actually you're making yourself stressed for no reason, because you're this is what I used to do, overthink, and then I feel more stressed the next day, when actually if I can take a bit of time out, I can come to it fresh the next day. The way I think about something will be much more in perspective, because I haven't been overthinking it. And I think it's really important to do that. I think whether you're a man or a woman, that kind of helps you in terms of dealing with the stress of the job. I think, you know, the particular challenge of being a female leader is, I think, I don't know if this is the case, but this is my thoughts, that women tend to be people pleasers more. So I think that personally, I always want to make sure that everyone is comfortable and everyone is happy. And that's very good actually from an events perspective, because it means that I always put my all into making sure that all of our clients are as happy as they can be. But you can't control other people's feelings. And I think sometimes, you know, if I'm in a room and some people are unhappy and some people are happy, I can't control how everyone feels about something. So I have to take a step back as well. I think that's another important lesson that I've learned as I've got older.
Okay. Well, I mean, I actually didn't think of it. Like it is so easy for us as women to be people pleasers. How how do you kind of handle like any maybe criticism about how things are working if people come in and criticize, like say, hey, I wasn't really happy with that, and how do you kind of deal with that and kind of compartmentalize and move forward from that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that if somebody has criticism, then it's valid because that's how they're seeing something. So I'll always listen, and I'll always try and work on a solution to make things better. I would never just say, "Oh, well, that's their problem." Really, like I will always try and listen and engage with what criticism they have. But the other very, very important kind of part of this, and I think this is something I have managed to do even when I was very young in my career, is understand that there's a difference between the professional and the personal. So if somebody is criticizing something, that's absolutely fine. They have every right to do that about work, and I will accept that even if they've got upset and angry. I will see it as very much a professional issue, and I will leave that at the door and not be personally upset by it, because it's two different parts of life. People have different reactions. The way, somebody might be stressed in work, they might shout about something. Fine, it's a professional problem. And I think that as long as people treat each other with respect, that's okay. I'm quite good at kind of like defining and recognizing what's professional, what's personal.
Okay, okay. You mentioned something previously which I thought was really interesting. In your experience, you've said that you've found it hard to draw the balance between work and your
I
personal
did,
life, right?
yeah, yeah.
But now, obviously, being like a festival director, sometimes that doesn't always switch off. Like you can't always. Events is not a 9 to 5 job,
No,
right?
yeah.
So how do you kind of draw that balance between work life and keep up with your mental health and in the midst of like busy seasons? How do you do that?
I think that I know that when we are, a few months out from an event, that's it. Like this is the job that I've chosen to do. It is going to be all encompassing. And I make allowances in my life for that, because I know if I go to bed and I feel like I haven't finished my to-do list that day, I'm just going to spend all night worrying about it. So I would prefer to do the job, work the long hours, because that's the nature of events, but knowing that post event that there will be downtime. So I think it's about scheduling in advance those busy periods in, and kind of mentally recognizing that's going to be a stressful time for me. That's going to be a busy time for me. I need to make sure that I'm like eating properly. I used to do this thing that I never used to eat at events, which was ridiculous, because then I was running on adrenaline only and actually no energy. So I've completely changed the way that I look at that. Try and still exercise, because exercise is so good if you are feeling stressed. Having an hour out to yourself, just exercising, it's so good at releasing any stress that you might have. So I think that's really important. And I think just telling family and friends, look, I've got this period of time that I'm not going to be as available. All my friends know not to bother messaging me and asking me to do anything in February, because they know that I'm going to be busy, and I don't want to feel pulled between between them and between other, between my job. But that's not to say, after the event, I make sure it's really important to have time out, like a few weeks after. I always try and schedule a holiday, because that's my downtime away from it. And then it's all my reintroduction to the world.
I think that's so good. I think it's really important for us to really mentally prepare ourselves that, like, you're going to go into a busy season and set the expectations, not only for ourselves, but to set them for people as well, so that people are not feeling like they're being let down or they're
Yeah,
being kind of
exactly. Yeah,
ignored by us.
yeah.
So just an interesting question. Would you consider yourself to be more of an emotional person or a logical, analytical person?
Oh, that's a really difficult question to answer, Susie. I think I'm quite an emotional person in my personal life, but I would say when it comes to work, I'm quite good at seeing things logically as well. Because you have to, again, it's like putting yourself in that professional mode and saying, right, I might feel this way about something, but actually looking at the data or whatever, this is the direction I'm going to go, and it's different from the emotional direction that I potentially want to go down. So I think it's really important to again separate the professional from the personal.
Oh, I think that's super interesting. Because I think sometimes there can be this sort of negative conception that women are emotional, so they can't lead. But
Yeah,
I think it's really inspiring that you would consider yourself to be an emotional person, but you've sort of found a way to use the emotion, but also back it up with what you can see and back it up with data and look at the facts rather than act based on feelings and stuff.
yeah,
Because I think I'm not saying that women are like less than men or anything, or that they can't lead effectively. Absolutely, they can.
yeah,
But I think that for some women, they can be really logical and analytical and really good at just getting things done and not really being sensitive to things. But some people, and I know from my experience as well, uh, we're having to learn how to kind of separate what's going on from our emotions and kind of handle things in a logical way. Especially when it comes to events, it can be quite stressful sometimes, and we tend to take it in like an emotional way, like, oh my
yeah,
god, I can't handle it, I feel like I'm going to break down.
yeah.
But with time, it can become something that, okay, yes, there is a lot happening, there's a lot of stress, but this and this needs to get done, and what are the small steps that I can make to get
Yeah,
this done.
yeah, you have to put the emotion aside and get on with the job in front of you a bit.
Yeah.
Don't I do think women make good leaders because they are maybe more have a bit more empathy, and so they're more kind of understanding of where people are coming from in their reactions to certain things, which I think makes them good events managers or executives or whatever, because they can understand why people are like talking the way that they talk to them, or have a perspective on something that may be emotionally driven, I think men do as well, but maybe they just don't show it as much.
Yeah, I also think that one of the strengths of like women leaders is that yes, they are empathetic, but they also tend to sometimes be more relationship oriented in terms of their approach to things. Also, like sometimes men can be really task oriented, but women can sometimes be both. Like they can be really good at being task oriented and getting things done, but also having establishing really good relationships with the employees. And I think that you do that very well with your team as well. Like we are quite a close team, but we know that when there's stuff to do, that we have a task to accomplish and we can just get things done. I think women can also be very good at both because they understand the needs of their team as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I agree with that. But I have to say, I've had quite a few male bosses, and I'm lucky that I feel like they've always been like that as well. So I think, yeah, I think it's a different age from when I first started out working as well. I think there is more empathy to the way employees, their mental health, and making sure that they're comfortable with what they're doing as well. No one really cared about that when I first started working.
Yeah, I mean, mental health is really becoming something that everyone is really aware of,
Which is
and
great.
yeah,
It's really important. You don't want to burn people out so they can't work again, or they have to take time out from their job. That's not what I think events. Definitely, I don't think events should be about that.
yeah, for sure. So I wanted to ask you if you've ever struggled with like confidence and stuff when it comes to maybe preparing for a meeting or maybe an event that shook your confidence or something. Have you ever struggled with it, or has it come easy?
Yeah, I'm sure. I think when I first started out, I wasn't particularly confident because there's a lot that you don't know, and there's a lot I don't know now. But I feel more secure in the knowledge I have. Yeah, I definitely have struggled with confidence, but I think that there's that whole thing. As long as you seem confident, that reassures others, and I think it's quite important sometimes that you have to just like put that mask on almost, and like inside you might be like but as long as outside you're coming across as being confident, generally that reassures others, and then they feel confident in you, and then you actually do begin to feel a bit more confident in yourself. And I think the other really important part of this is something that I've just kind of learned with age, is to not worry so much about what other people think about you. That really helps with confidence, because as soon as you get rid of that part of it, you're just going in doing what you need to do, talking in the way you need to talk, and it helps you feel more confident.
So, do you have any like practical tips on how you got to that point of not caring what people think?
I definitely still care what people think, but I don't care as much. I think some of it is just You have a right to be there. You are particularly in a professional sense, you're in the job because you're good at your job, otherwise you wouldn't be there. And just respecting yourself enough to understand that really helps with confidence and with not worrying what other people think, because you have something to say, you have a valid right to be there.
Okay. So the last question to kind of wrap up this conversation is, what would be your advice to like young women who are starting off in their careers?
Right. Okay. So I think that this is just based on my career. I think it's just important to understand that, like, however well kind of educated you are, like however many kind of degrees under your name or whatever, if there's a specific career that you want to go into, you are going to have to work from the bottom up. It does take time, and that's not just based on how good you are when you first go in. It's actually, you're really learning so much over that time it's taking you to build through your career. And that kind of experience is really important if you want to then kind of develop your career to a more senior role. So I would say understand that it is going to take a bit of time. Like, you're not going to go into your dream job straight away. And this just isn't just about women, it's about men as well. Like, it is going to take time, but that time is important because it helps you build your skill set, it helps you build your experience, and it also helps you build your confidence as well. So I think understanding it's going to take time is important, but I think also understanding that you might not be the loudest person in the room, and that's really fine. Like, I do go to meetings where I do see men are drowning out women because they're talking louder, and they're coming across, maybe it's more confident or maybe it's bravado, I don't know. But understanding that, okay, you might be the quiet person in the room, I certainly have been, but that's okay. Like, all of us have something to contribute, so we don't feel we need to be something different from who we are. We have a right to be there, and we should be confident in that as well.
I think that's definitely the right place for us to end, because that is incredibly inspiring. Thank you so much, Thea. I think I have also learned so much from you in this podcast, and we could talk about this subject for hours because there's so much to cover when it comes to leadership, good work ethic, integrity, and confidence. But I hope that this inspires you guys. Please do check out some of our other content as well. We will be publishing an article about this of our interview with Thea, and you can find her on Instagram as well. Do you want to give your tag?
Oh no, I don't really use it. Sorry, no, I don't really use Instagram very much. So no, you can just, I guess, like, if you're interested in the creative scene, then check out the Divine Lynx handle.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day, and we will see you next.